Do you also like watching horror stories? So turn off the lights of your room and close the door. And stay till the end of the video. In a small, forgotten town, there stood an old house that had been abandoned for decades. The townspeople spoke in hushed tones about the strange occurrences within its walls, whispers that echoed at night and shadows that danced just out of sight. Curious, a young woman named Clara decided to investigate. One rainy evening, she approached the house, the wind howling around her. As she stepped inside, the door creaked ominously behind her, shutting with a heavy thud. The air was thick with dust and an unsettling silence. Clara flicked on her flashlight, illuminating peeling wallpaper and broken furniture. As she moved deeper into the house, the whispers began. Soft, indistinct murmurs floated through the air, almost like a conversation just out of reach. She strained to listen, but the words eluded her. Heart racing, she continued, drawn deeper by a mix of fear and curiosity. In the living room, Clara found an old mirror, its surface clouded and cracked. As she wiped away some dust, her reflection flickered, revealing a dark figure standing behind her. She spun around, but there was nothing, only the empty room and the cold draft brushing against her skin. The whispers grew louder, now sounding almost urgent. Clara felt a chill creep up her spine. She followed the sound, moving toward the basement door, slightly ajar. The whispers seemed to call her name, promising secrets hidden in the shadows. With a deep breath, she descended the creaking stairs. The air was colder, and the whispers became clearer, intertwining into a haunting melody. In the dim light, Clara saw shapes move just beyond her vision. Panic set in, but her curiosity compelled her forward. At the bottom, she found an old nursery, toys scattered on the floor. The whispers intensified, and Clara felt a presence behind her. She turned slowly, and there, in the corner, stood a child, a little girl with hollow eyes and a sad smile. "Help us," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Clara's heart raced as the room filled with shadows, closing in around her. The girl extended her hand, but Clara stumbled back, instinctively reaching for the stairs. As she turned to run, the whispers crescendoed, a cacophony of despair and longing. Clara dashed up the stairs, but the door slammed shut, trapping her inside. The whispers morphed into screams, echoing her own terror. The shadows surged toward her, and she felt icy fingers brush her skin. With a surge of adrenaline, Clara slammed her shoulder against the door, finally breaking free. She burst outside, gasping for breath, the night air burning her lungs. But as she looked back, the house loomed silently, the whispers fading into the wind. The townspeople never saw Clara again. Some say she joined the spirits trapped within the walls, forever echoing the whispers that had drawn her in. And on stormy nights, if you listen closely, you can still hear her voice calling for help. In the quiet town of Hollow Creek, a decrepit mansion loomed at the edge of a dense forest. For years, it sat abandoned, whispered about by the locals. They said it was cursed, haunted by the spirits of a family that vanished one stormy night. One evening, a group of friends, Mark, Sarah, and Tom, decided to explore the mansion. Armed with flashlights and bravado, they approached the crumbling structure. The door creaked open at their touch, revealing a dark hallway lined with dusty portraits that seemed to watch their every move. As they stepped inside, a chill swept through the air. "Did you feel that?" Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. They laughed nervously, dismissing it as the draft. They wandered deeper, the floorboards groaning underfoot. In the living room, they found an old piano, its keys yellowed with age. Mark, wanting to lighten the mood, played a few notes. The sound echoed hauntingly, and suddenly, the temperature dropped. A whisper floated through the room, barely audible, "Get out." Tom laughed it off, but Sarah looked uneasy. "Maybe we should leave," she suggested. Just as they turned to go, a heavy thud sounded from upstairs. Curiosity overcame their fear, and they ventured up the staircase, each step creaking ominously. At the top, they found a long hallway. Doors lined either side, some ajar, revealing dark voids. The whispers grew louder, urging them forward. They opened a door at the end of the hall, revealing a child's bedroom, filled with broken toys and faded wallpaper. In the corner stood a small rocking chair, swaying back and forth, as if recently occupied. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind them. Panic set in as the whispers became frantic. "Leave now." The friends rushed to the door, but it wouldn't budge. The rocking chair stopped moving, and in the dim light, a shadowy figure materialized, an anguished little girl, her eyes hollow and pleading. "Help me," she whispered, reaching out. The room grew colder, and the shadows began to swirl, enveloping them. Mark screamed, "We have to get out." They banged on the door, desperation taking hold. Finally, with a burst of adrenaline, they pushed through, stumbling back into the hallway. But the mansion had changed. The walls seemed to close in, and the whispers escalated to a deafening roar. "Stay with us." They sprinted down the stairs, the front door now appearing miles away. Just as they reached it, the door slammed shut, trapping them inside. The friends huddled together, terror etched on their faces. The shadows crept closer, and the girl's voice echoed, "You can't leave." With a final push, they flung themselves against the door, and it burst open. They ran into the night, the mansion looming behind them, silent once more. As they reached the forest's edge, they turned back. The house stood still, but the whispers faded into the wind, forever haunting Hollow Creek. In the quaint village of Eldridge, an ancient mirror hung in the old town hall. Locals claimed it was cursed, said to show not only reflections but glimpses into the past, dark, terrible events that had unfolded within its frame. Most avoided it, but one night, curiosity got the better of a young man named Ethan. Ethan, drawn by tales of the mirror's power, decided to visit the town hall after dark. The building loomed under a crescent moon, its windows like dark eyes watching him. As he entered, the door creaked ominously, echoing through the empty hall. The mirror stood at the end of the room, ornate and dusty. As Ethan approached, he felt a chill in the air. He wiped the surface clean, revealing a glass that shimmered unnaturally. Staring into it, he expected to see himself, but instead, the reflection warped. Suddenly, images flashed before him, a woman screaming, a child crying, shadows moving like phantoms. His heart raced as he realized these were moments of terror from the village's past. He stumbled back, but the mirror held him in a trance. Desperate to break free, Ethan turned away, but a voice called from behind him. "Stay." It was soft, luring. He turned back, and the mirror showed a dark figure, a gaunt woman with hollow eyes. She reached out, her fingers brushing against the glass, beckoning him closer. Paralyzed with fear, Ethan felt a force pulling him in. He tried to scream, but no sound escaped. The woman's mouth moved, whispering secrets of pain and despair. He could feel her sorrow wrapping around him like chains. With a surge of will, Ethan stepped back, breaking the spell. He ran for the door, but it slammed shut, locking him inside. The shadows in the room twisted and writhed, closing in around him. "You cannot escape," the voice echoed, now a chorus of anguished whispers. Frantically, Ethan searched for another way out. He remembered the window behind the mirror. With all his strength, he hurled himself against it, shattering the glass. As he fell outside, he felt a cold hand brush his back, pulling him toward the darkness. Ethan landed on the ground, gasping for breath, but the shadows lingered at the edges of his vision. He scrambled to his feet and ran into the night, the village quiet around him. Days turned into weeks, but the nightmares persisted. The woman's face haunted him, her whispers filling his mind. He avoided the town hall, but the curse followed him. Friends noticed his growing paranoia, but he couldn't explain the fear that clung to him. One stormy night, unable to resist, Ethan returned to the mirror. Lightning illuminated the room, casting eerie shadows. As he approached, the mirror pulsed with energy, and the woman's voice filled the air. "You returned." He couldn't fight it this time. The darkness enveloped him, pulling him back into the glass. The mirror trembled as his reflection distorted into a scream. The next morning, the townspeople found the mirror cracked but empty. Ethan was gone, his name lost to the whispers of the past. And the mirror? It stood silent, waiting for the next curious soul to draw near, ready to ensnare them in its cursed grip.